Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews and sharing our first impressions of the new albums from Korpiklaani, Filth, Erra, and Ingested. Four pretty cool albums dropped today, pretty notable bands. Except maybe Filth, they're pretty, I don't know if they're newish, but they're up and coming.
Yeah, I would definitely say they're up and coming.
Yeah, I think they got some previous albums, so they've been around for a bit, but we've only heard of them recently, and we don't hear a lot of buzz about them until recently. They've been kind of gaining steam and stuff like that leading up to this album release, and I guess we'll just kick it off with Filth. Right. Southern Hostility dropped today. We reacted to Stay Gutter, and we reacted to Martyr, I believe.
Actually, I don't think we did Stay Gutter. I think we did, I'm pretty sure we did Chin Check and Martyr. No, we didn't.
No, we did Stay Gutter and Martyr. Chin Check we checked out afterwards, but didn't react to it, I think.
I think it was Martyr and then the title track.
Either way, we reacted to a couple of them.
I did to like two, I think.
And liked them a lot. But then we also checked out a couple more that we didn't react to. That's why we're confused.
Yeah.
And we liked those as well. So we were pretty hyped coming into it, right? We're like, okay, this is gonna be good. And I gotta say, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty much what I expected from this band. It's got that hip hop, deathcore, merge vibe to it. The vocalist sounds pretty good. He does a couple little rap parts here or there. It might actually be another band member that does the rapping. I'm not entirely sure. I think there's a couple different members that share vocal parts. But overall, it's pretty good. It's pretty standard as far as deathcore goes. The hip-hop element definitely gives it its own personality. I think the drums on this album shine the most. I think the drummer stands out the most. He's got some really nice chops. My overall issue with the album is I found it was like a little bit try-hard. Like it was trying a little bit too hard to sound tough and sound, gangster and things like that. And there was just a couple of lines that they say that were a little bit cringy. I don't know, maybe that's just me probably. Maybe I'm looking too deeply into it. It's meant to be fun, right? I'm probably just analyzing it a little bit too much. But a couple songs that that stood out to me were the title track, Southern Hostility, was really good. I like the riffs on that one. Stay Gutter, I still like that one. And one of the things I like about it is the intro. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like somebody's munching chips.
Yeah, no, it totally does.
Totally sounds like that.
Like, what are they eating?
I think I made that comment when we reacted too, but or when we heard it or whatever. Mm-hmm. Another thing I'm going to point out is there's a song called Stay Gutter, and then there's another song just called Gutter. And I thought that was weird to have two songs on the album with similar names like that.
Not only is that weird, but you can kind of sing Stay Gutter on top of that. Like, it takes rhythmic aspects from Stay Gutter, so it's like,
yeah.
Why? The weirdest part about it is that they're just a few songs apart. It would be kind of cool if Stay Gutter was where it was, number 2, and then Gutter was near the end of the album to have this kind of relation at the beginning and end, but it's like track 2 and then track like 5?
Yeah, it would be better to flip them though, like have Gutter, and then a few tracks later, then it's now Stay Gutter.
Yeah, that would make sense. Not only would that make sense,
like it's a sequel or something.
And then it's like we take this rhythmic idea, now we developed it into this whole thing.
Exactly.
Because Gutter feels a little bit more stripped down from what Stay Gutter was.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting creative decision. I'm not sure what the whole thing behind that was. Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're connected or not intentionally, but who knows.
Speaking of Stay Gutter, I mean, I love that song to death. When I first heard it, it went straight into my playlist. I'm like, this song is sick. The whole thing's awesome. Definitely in my Song of the Year playlist. Like, it's just a killer track. Mm-hmm. Now, my expectations were really high going into this record because everything I was hearing leading up to it got me super duper excited. Like, I heard Stay Gutter, I'm like, oh, that's sick. Like, I'm so hyped for this band. Mm-hmm. So the expectations were quite high. And one thing I noticed when I first started listening is that the mix was extremely low end and bass heavy. Mm-hmm. Like, to the point where I'm like, I feel like you're gonna get your best experience with this in the car. Like, it's almost like it's made for car speakers.
Anywhere you got a subwoofer, basically, yeah.
Yeah, if you got a super sub, then like crank up the bass.
That's the hip hop element in there too, right?
That's fair, that's true, that's true.
Yeah.
And I do think that's cool that kind of more recently we're seeing a new avenue open up in deathcore, because we comment a lot of the time on lots of deathcore saying, this is just run of the mill, it's nothing special.
Yeah.
These guys are doing something different, something that hasn't really been explored much.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool that these guys are helping pave the way for something new in a genre that's become kind of stale.
Like a new subgenre.
A new subgenre, yeah.
Yeah.
You're just going down that rabbit hole.
Heavy on the sub.
So I do think that's really cool. The title track is better than I remember because I recall when we reacted to that track, we thought, this is cool, but it's not as good as the other tracks. But then listening to it again, like, nah, this track is actually pretty rad. Like one of the more standout ones on the album. So I thought that was a pretty strong track. One thing I found that was interesting, there's an interlude on this album, and that's Shit Kickers. It's like a minute 38, and it's kind of just a breakdown, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, you got like a 39-minute long album, you're taking up a track with just kind of like nothing going on.
I mean, I didn't hate that it was there, but
No,
yeah, sometimes you wonder why you don't just make a full song at that point.
Yeah, like, it didn't bother me per se, it just got me questioning, like, why is this here?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like there.
But it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I said, it's not like necessarily like a problem.
Yeah.
Play Dead was pretty good. I'm pretty sure that one was featuring Tom Barber from Chelsea Grin. I like the bounce in that. It's got a bit of a melodic hook, which is pretty cool. Op Stoppers is another one I really liked, and that one leans a little bit harder into the hip-hop aspect of this band's sound than some other tracks. I thought that was pretty damn cool. Overall, strong album. It didn't, like, when you have really high expectations for an album, it's like, oh man, like it's gonna be the best thing ever, and then you're gonna be disappointed if it's not the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Was it the best thing ever? No, but it was still solid. Like,
yeah.
Overall, quite enjoyable, and it still has some awesome tracks in it.
All right, let's move on to Korpiklaani. Rankarumpu. So this band's from Finland. All their song titles and everything's in Finnish, so I'm probably going to pronounce a lot of it wrong. I honestly don't even know if Korpiklaani is the correct pronunciation of the band name. It might be pronounced slightly different than that. I'm not sure. Either way, this is our first time doing a full Korpiklaani album on the channel.
It is.
As far as the first impressions or anything goes, but we've done a couple reactions to them, I believe.
I'm not entirely sure, actually.
I thought we did one like a year ago or something, and then it turned into like nothing.
We may have done one. I'm not sure. It's, you know, you do this for like 6 years plus, so it gets difficult to remember all of it, right?
That's right. So, came into this album, and you know, I know about this band. I know kind of what their gig is, you know, the folk metal and that kind of thing. And you know, that's what I expected, and that's what I got. Right? Lots of cool stringed instruments. The accordion's there. I can't make out whether it's fiddle or viola or violin or if it's all accordion or what. It's really hard to distinguish sometimes, these instruments. But they're all very active and they're all very entertaining to me. And they seem to be placed and performed in certain parts of the songs that are very tasteful. And I really liked how it was constructed and presented on the album. So a couple of things that stood out to me on this album was track number 4, Saunan, I don't know, Saunaan. I have no idea, sorry, I'm butchering it. Anyways, about the song, really like the energy on this one. Had a really cool drum intro that was sick.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and what I believe was accordion, and if you call them riffs, I'm not sure, but accordion riffs, I don't know. Those were also awesome, and I was really digging that. Couple songs after that, Calmisto, fuck, sorry. This one had like kind of a really cool, like slow march tempo to it. Like almost, it kind of reminded me a bit of like Rammstein, like a bit of like that marching kind of music, right? This one had some string instruments like fiddles or violas or something like that I was really getting attached to and thought were really cool. No perkly. Why do you do this to me? No perkely, no perkely, no perkely, no perkeel. I don't know. Track number 8. Also like this one. Cool solo section. Basically, I liked all of the songs, but I'm just kind of talking about ones that just kind of you know, piqued my interest a little bit more because of certain things here and there. And every time my interest was piqued, it was because of these like instruments you don't normally hear in a metal band. Like folk metal, yeah, you get this stuff all the time, but we don't listen to a lot of folk metal, so these things stand out more. And then you got like these power metal vibes that come and go in certain songs, and you know, the vocalist is doing all these sorts of things. So I thought this was a pretty fun album. Is it something I'd want to listen to all the time? I don't know about that. I kind of feel similar to this, how I'd feel to like maybe like Ailstorm, where like I like it, it's fun, and there's a lot of stuff there that I can enjoy. But putting it on like repeat, for example, I'm not sure how much I would tolerate that. And that's kind of my hang up on it. Like, how much replay value does it have?
Yeah, I had an interesting experience with this album because it felt like I was enjoying it. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is good, but I just wasn't feeling it. And I think that's because maybe I wasn't able to switch gears. Because with the 4 albums that we listened to today, like, for reference, I listened to Filth, then I listened to Erra, then I listened to this. Okay. So to have those 2 albums right before this, it's such a stark contrast of sound.
Yeah.
So it's hard to latch on to this with those right before it fresh in my mind.
Right.
So so it's like I wasn't like, you know, kind of judging it like, oh, this kind of just blah. I'm like, no, this has got some cool stuff. It's interesting. It's got some fun moments. Like I can tell this is a good album. It's just in this specific scenario for myself, I wasn't into it, which is why I want to try it again later. And with, you know, a kind of a clear blank slate.
Fresh mind, yeah.
A fresh mind. But they actually dropped an album in 2021, and I vaguely recall the name. It was called like Jilha, which is kind of vaguely familiar name, but I don't remember anything on it. I don't remember, like, if I listen to it, I do not remember anything from it right now. But the name was familiar. So I'm like, okay, maybe I have listened to this before. I'm not sure.
Are you going to try to pronounce any of these song names?
I mean, okay.
Or am I going to be the only one?
I guess it's my turn. I mean, Saunan does start with a rad drum fill. That was one of the main notes that I made. I didn't make too many notes for this album. The second track, I didn't write down the name of that. What is it? Let's see. Tapasen Kun Kerkit. I tried. So this might sound really weird, but I feel like this singer's voice kind of reminds me of the guy from Skindred. Not in terms of like accent or anything, but just the actual voice itself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. I can, like, the guy from Skindred, I want to say he's Jamaican, but I might just be assuming that. I don't know. But he's got a bit of a Jamaican accent.
Like when he sings, of course. Yeah. But it's just like, ignoring the accent, just the actual voice sound itself and the inflections and stuff.
No, I get it, but I think all like those things that he's doing, you can still hear or maybe imagine a Jamaican accent there. It's like you can kind of picture it there, even though it's not there.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, no, it's like the fact that
interesting connection.
The fact that I was making that connection, I'm like, this is so weird, but okay. But yeah, it was a cool and hard-hitting track, short and sweet. I liked that. So, I always like to talk about key changes.
Yes.
This album has probably a little bit more than I would like to enjoy, but some of them were actually interesting. Now, the first track, Kodoma, I didn't really like the song much, but the key change was cool because he screams, changes his tone, and then they just lead into a key change there. Like, that's a creative way of doing it. Into, you know, a string, or whether that's violin, fiddle, I'm not sure. Into an accordion solo after that. I thought that was actually pretty cool. The way they did that, like key change into the solo like that, that was creative, and it didn't feel cookie cutter.
Yeah.
I do feel like they did a lot of them on this album though, which is a bit much, but overall, it was pretty good despite me understanding that, okay, I'm not in the right headspace for this record, but I can understand it's pretty good still.
Fair enough. All right. Moving along, let's talk about Ingested, the Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams. I'm going to give a shout out to the album cover once again because
that's a sick
I think when
cover.
we reacted to Paragon of Purity, I think we mentioned that in our reaction as well. I just love this album art, man. I couldn't stop looking at it. Even when listening to this today, I was just like...
It's a very visually striking one.
It's visually striking. It's just such a cool piece of art. I don't know what's so captivating about it, but I just love it. Anyways, moving on from that, I thought this was a pretty sick album, right? On a first impression, pretty impressed, okay? I remember when we reacted to Paragon of Purity, and we reacted to one other one, but I couldn't remember which one it was. It was Pantheon. Okay, cool. I remember liking both of those. So on my first listen here, I thought Paragon of Purity opening track was a banger. Like, I was like, oh yes, this is what I remember. This is kicking the album off right. So sick. Favorite part of the song is when the double bass kicks in, this happens a few times throughout the album where it just goes, ham speed, and it just sounds so fucking good.
The speed of ham.
The speed of ham. Track number 3, Where No Lights Shine. I like the really kind of eerie, slow, kind of siren type riff that was happening during the intro, and it goes on for nearly a minute or so with the music playing as well until the actual riff kicks in. I thought that was kind of cool because it kind of circumvented my expectations of the song, where I thought it was going to be this really ominous, creepy song the whole time, and then it switched up and kind of turned into a real song. So I thought that was pretty cool. Numinous is an instrumental, which is also kind of soft, acoustic, atmospheric. Then the band kicks in, and it plays that throughout, whatever. It's just under 4 minutes long. I think it's 3:55 or 3:50 or something like that.
3:50.
3:50, and I love the fact that it's that length. I feel like if it was any longer, it would have ruined it. They kept it at a really nice, short, sweet length for an instrumental. I mean, I've liked longer instrumentals, but for this specific one, I was glad it ended when it did.
I feel like 3:50 is a pretty average song length. And
is.
what's especially cool about that is that usually when you look at a track listing and you see the lengths of them, if one's like short enough or long enough, you'll think, okay, there's got to be something weird about that one.
Yeah.
But with this song being about the same general length as everything else, you're not expecting
it.
any of what is in that song to be there.
Right. So yeah, I thought that was pretty good. The next song right after that is In Nothingness, featuring Mark Hunter from Chimera. And it's been a while since I've listened to Chimera, and that's not how I remember Mark sounding. I don't know if he's singing differently or what, but it threw me off a little bit. Wasn't bad. I thought the song was still good. I was expecting a different kind of vocal feature, and it threw me off a little bit. The next couple songs I'm going to talk about before I pass the floor to TV Fish is Kingdom of Sand, which I thought this one had really cool grooves. I thought the middle of the song has this cool kind of breakdown type of section, but it still kind of maintained a groove feel to it, which I thought was also awesome. And the riffs on this song are just nasty, and again, the double bass kicks in, and it just lights up the whole song. Really, really good. And then the last song I'll talk about is the last song, A Path Once Lost. Again, starts out soft, ominous, then about a third of the way through it gets heavy. Song's about almost 7 minutes long, longest song on the album. So it's got kind of that progressive nature to it. It kind of goes through different motions, it goes through different sections. Really rad solo section, and then it ends on a calm note as well. I think it's a great album closer. I think it has a nice contour to itself, and it also adds good contour to the album as a whole. So yeah, I think on my first listen, I was pretty impressed by what I heard, and there was lots of things sprinkled in here throughout the songs that it was perking my ears up, and I was pretty pleased.
I think contour is definitely the name of the game for this album because they go in such different directions, and on a first listen, you're not ready for that.
Yeah.
You listen to those two singles, you get an idea in your head, and then the album kind of throws you through a loop, and you're not ready for that at all. Now, Paragon of Purity, I still think that's a cool track. I enjoyed it quite a bit as well. What's especially cool is that you've got this guitar line that keeps coming back throughout the song. So when the solo starts, it starts with that line and then evolves into this solo. And then the guitar's still present going on with that when the vocals come back into the track, which is really cool. And it didn't take too long for me to kind of get the vibe of some of these songs being like, okay, this is deathcore with no bullshit. No strings attached, no overly anything, like straight up, here it is. Here are the grooves, here are the parts. I think the guitar work is the highlight of this album. I'm constantly thinking to myself, that's a cool thing the guitar did. That's a cool idea, that's a cool solo. That for me, on a first listen, that was the highlight.
Nice.
There is another feature on this album, Expect to Fail, featuring Josh Middleton from Silosis, which is pretty cool. And that track, they definitely waste no time getting to business. Which is also interesting because there are tracks that do have, longer intros or have something going on before it really gets going, which
It's good to have both of those things too.
Exactly. Now, Starve the Fire was another surprise on this record, coming out with this syncopated rhythm that I was not expecting because they didn't have that anywhere else before then. So I'm like, oh, what is this? This is awesome. Then right after that, you have Numinous, which was a beautiful song. Like, I'm listening to that like, wow, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
And I think all these deathcore bands really need to learn from this album. This is how you not only throw off expectations, but this is also how you create a good contour. If every song sounded like Numinous, it wouldn't be as powerful. Numinous is a strong, powerful, melodic song that doesn't really happen much else on the album, save for the last track, but not in the same way.
Right.
So the fact that you have that there in the middle of the album, with the length that it is, like, it's just so well crafted. And I think more bands need to do stuff like that.
Okay.
Because then right after that, you have In Nothingness, which is super mean, and you're so used to the atmosphere that Numinous gives you that when you get back to In Nothingness, it's like, whoa, it hits even harder that way because it has that contour. And it's awesome to see a deathcore album do that, especially today. There's so many deathcore bands and albums that don't really have that much of a cool contour or roller coaster adventure.
Just in your face nonstop for 40 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this album has nuance, and that's just based off one listen. Just hearing it once, I noticed all this cool stuff in it already.
That's what's surprising me is off one listen, you have such a strong opinion on it to the point where you're being like, other bands take notice, right? Like, who knows, you might listen to this a few more times and go, you know what? I don't really feel that way anymore. And that could happen. You never know. But moving on, we got one more album to talk about, and that's Cure by Erra. And this is another band where we checked out at least 2 of the singles, I believe. We checked out
the title track and Blue Reverie.
That's right. I forgot about Blue Reverie. So the title track is the opening track on the album. So when I started the album, my initial thought was, this is pretty good, but I remember liking it more when we reacted. And I can't remember which video was which, but I remember one of the videos was kind of trippy, and they were like, there was like some door above them or something. They were going through some door. They were standing out in a field or something.
So yeah, the video for the title track was the one where they were in a field and there were people like kind of warping, like their like bodies were like shifting and stuff.
That's the one.
That was the title track.
Right. So I remember liking that one, but I also remember liking the video a lot. And that can also play. It can be tugging on your opinion, right? When you're visually stimulated as well as audibly stimulated. So I wasn't as impressed when I was just listening to it. I was like, is this really what I was so hyped about before? Anyways, moving on from that, the second track, Rumor of Light, I'm like, this track feels to me like a cool down song. Like if you're gonna have a heavy album, metal album, usually on track like maybe 4 or 5 on an album is like a song that we generally call the cool down song, which is the song that's a little bit softer, a little bit more mellow than other songs. I got this on track number 2, which felt weird to me. Track number 2 to me historically and traditionally is like one of the heavier songs on a metal album. That's kind of how, in my head, that's kind of how it goes. But then track number 3 comes on and it's also soft. And I start wondering, was my perception of this band off? Like when I say soft, I mean like the songs are heavy because they're djenty. Like djent is heavy no matter what. They're really chunky, djenty riffs. But there's a lot of really soft, clean singing that really overtakes the songs for me. You sound a little confused, and I'm not sure why, but...
Well, I just feel like kind of based from that description saying, they're djenty, and djenty is heavy, but the song is soft. But then you explain that the way that the clean vocals are, that kind of overtakes that, like that. That's
what it is, okay, yeah. So it's like, it's too juxtaposed in a way where you have the heavy guitars and then the soft vocals. The vocals are hard sometimes too, but the soft vocals for me were, I'm trying to put this in a nice way. I don't want to, ruining the song. Okay, I mean, they're ruining the song. If you've been on this channel for a while, I'm not the biggest fan of soft vocals, but I don't hate them. Okay, there's plenty of soft vocals that I like. There's plenty of soft vocals that I'm totally cool with. This one was annoying me. It was bugging me. And the fact that it's on pretty much every single song almost ruined this whole experience for me. And it made this album probably my least favorite of the day. The only song that I think I would give a pass for the softness, the soft singing, is Wave, the last track. Because it's the last track, sometimes you get a little bit of a pass there because it's the outro and it's kind of the closer and it's the wind down and stuff like that. Sometimes it's good work for an album to end on a song that's super fast and super crazy, and you end on this super chaotic note. But sometimes it's nice to kind of mellow out and ease off and fade out into an ending.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt like this song did. So I think the last track is probably one of the highlights based on the fact that it's the best fitting song for the sound of the band, if that makes sense. Other than that, there's a couple songs where I did like the grooves and the riffs. So I think Glimpse, track number 7, I thought that one had really cool grooves and stuff like that. And it's a shame because I was really liking this song because it was kind of it was kind of heavy at the front and had a little bit of cleans and stuff like that. But then this whole second half of the song was mostly soft. And I said, man, if you were just stuck with the formula you had in the first half of the song, this would have been a highlight for me. Mm-hmm. But then you kind of went the way I didn't like and kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. So I just think overall my perception of this band was off. I wasn't expecting it to be as soft sounding as it was, which is weird because for a genty band or a gent band, it's weird to say that it sounds soft, but to me it did.
That's just kind of like from the melodic nature of a lot of it. Kind
of melodic nature, and it's like the singing. It's almost like when the singer's trying to sound like he's like a dream state or something like that. Like I feel like I'm in like Herbie's Dreamland or something like that. I don't know. That was probably a horrible analogy, but
if the next Kirby game's gonna have Erra as the music, I'm buying that. I haven't even
played a Kirby game before, but it felt like very. I don't know if ethereal's the right word or dreamlike or dream state. I don't know. It felt dreamy to me. Like if you're watching a TV show and somebody's going to a dream, it always sounds like this whimsical kind of sound. Like,
yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned expectations earlier with Filth, and my expectations for this album are extremely high as well because I really loved the singles that we heard, especially the title track, and I still love that song so much that it's one of the juiciest jams I've heard in a while. Dude, it was awesome. It's so bouncy. The whole track is incredible. And to me, it kind of sounded like Tesseract, but heavier. And I'm like, that's what I want. Heavier Tesseract? That sounds awesome. Now, Rumor of Light, something interesting I noticed about this track is specifically the melodic chorus. Like that specific melody sounds like something I would hear in Sleep Token. Okay. Like I'm listening to that, I'm like, I could totally hear Vessel singing something to this melody. Like I could totally hear that, which was interesting. Then you got Idle Wild, which is another bouncy track. Like, okay, yeah, I'm getting into that. And I liked the guitar in the background of the pre-chorus. Wasn't huge on the chorus itself, and I found that it got to a point where I feel like they were forcing some of the clean sections on this record. While they sound really nice, and in some songs they really hit, I feel like it got more focused than I would prefer, especially considering you have some of my favorite songs are the ones that are more hard groove focused. Slow Sour Bleed, that's another pretty good one. I like the bridge of that song. I also like the bridge of Blue Reverie, and I'm kind of hoping for more of that kind of stuff on the record. There's this interlude track in the middle called Wish, which leads into Glimpse, which is a pretty good transition. Thought that was pretty neat. That was good, yep. Kind of felt like Wish was like just the intro to Glimpse, really, and I guess they just didn't want the song to push 6 minutes.
That's right.
So they split it.
Which I appreciate.
Which is, if you want just the song to start, and there you go.
Yep.
Crawl Backwards Out of Heaven is another really cool hard jam banger. Like I like that one as well. So there's a lot of really juicy stuff on this album.
It's got cleans though too. I don't think there's any songs that don't have the cleans in them.
It's just some songs it works fine. Some songs I'm like, okay, they didn't need it here, but they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Overall,
that's one of those songs I think.
I still think it's a solid album. Didn't blow my mind like I wanted it to, but the highlights are like super highlights, like the title track, like Crawl Backwards Out of Heaven. Like these songs are sick, and the title track went into my track of the year playlist. Like amazing song, loved it.
Yeah, so after listening to these albums, we both agreed that the one we like the most out of these four is The Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams. So we're going to listen to Ingested all week long and form our opinions for a review of this album, and we'll be back next week to give you guys our final scores for it. So for now, leave your thoughts down below and let us know what you guys think of these four albums and what you think of all our thoughts and all that fun jazz. And subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys next time.